identity, who I am, who am I? Love, relationships with others and strangers. Vocation, work and career. Wealth, money and investments. So, in today's video, what I'm going to share with you based on 4 sectors of myself, something, solidified self. This, in turn, is my observation to conclude the completion of Shlee Binesi, my identity. So, getting into my identity, the past, what I learned in my 20s years about myself as an individual, the development, to who I am present day. How did that come about? Why did that come about? Well, as we all know and understand, it all starts relatively from the beginning. Only patterns played out over time, we really truly learn and understand who we are present day. So with that being said, my identity in my 20s, in a lot of ways, honestly, truthfully, I have not changed. I'm still the same stubborn, selfless, intense, intimidating individual that I've always been since I can recall. The only thing that's changed about my identity in terms of myself as an individual is how I utilize that with everything connected and interconnected to identity, our ego, and where that ego was birthed before this present moment and everything leading up to this present moment. So myself as an individual, getting into my identity and everything I discovered about myself during my 20s, you know, the influences and inspirations of everything that happened during my 20s, from past, previous influencers and inspirations, the ones that I, you know, connected to, not in a real physical sense or a real in-person sense, but more so like at a distance through the media, which was very far and few. I didn't really make, you know, connections with idols and pop culture in terms of like many, but I had a select few that sort of influenced me, who I am present day, and they still do, but just I'm not somebody who was like all over the map in terms of like identity and myself. I'm very fixed in terms of a lot of things and how I am as an individual. So yeah, so my identity, my 20s, you know, I took bits and pieces from select few inspirations and influences from others, and this was actually something that was real as well, like in terms of like people I actually knew, which was like, again, you know, far and few. So and yeah, so my identity, you know, I'm alternative, I'm in, you know, ethnic, so to speak. So I've been goth since I was in my 20s. I've been goth since my teens. You know, the aesthetic of this darkness that is Shlee is always going to be present. So with that being said, that is my identity. Love, relationships, others, and strangers. So how does my love life play into what I the lessons learned in my 20s, connecting that to my identity. Oh, some lessons that I've learned there is, just because we're alternative or have had alternative experiences, and when I say alternative experiences, I'm not coming from a privileged or prosperous place. I'm coming from a very alternative, experiences. When your experiences are alternative, to me that symbolizes abnormal. So this can range from anything, everything connected to love, which is our heart. So, if you've had the alternatives to love and relationships with others, and how this plays into our identity in our 20s is vital to who we are present day. So unfortunately, my love life has been very tragic and traumatic. So I'm at peace and presently, rolling solo, just doing my own thing, and I'm completely content with just me. So that's what I learned in my 20s about myself was, previous patterns from everything before my 20s really influenced my 20s. And now we're here, rolling solo, loving life. And you know what? That's okay. So basically, what I learned in my 20s, death to my 20s, I was like a on and off again artist. In my early 20s, I was like part-time artist, and then just part-time living just to live. I didn't work, so very life of a gypsy. Just the universe just kind of opens up, and now we see that the world is. And now wealth, money, investments, being connected, interconnected to our vocation, our work, our career. What I learned in my 20s with that is my karma in terms of my experiences, being that they were alternative in my 20s, so to speak, mental illness, all the terms interconnected to the labels we use to identify the types of mental illness in the world. We're all experiences as an individual endured by yours truly, Shlee Binesi, aka Shlee Strangement, the founder and director of anything and everything. We are here to estrange ourselves from, especially if it disempowered our sense of self. And this is what this video entails.
Death to my 20s.
Oh, we get the idea. Anyways, back to So these 4 sectors, identity, love, vocation, and wealth, are almost inclined to be in line with the medicine wheel. The mind, the body, the spirit. So the child, the teenager, the adult, the grand. So these 4 sectors, these 4 truths, the identity, the love, the vocation, the wealth, how they're all interconnected and they all interplay into our experiences in our 20s, and all these little tidbits I just shared with you all. Being as someone who's, estranging themselves from experiences not of the alternative, because experiences relating to non-alternatives is insulting. Specifically speaking for Shlee Estrangement. And this is why you have tuned in to Shlee Estrangement. I'm just embracing and, I accept my 30s wholeheartedly. Death to my 20s. Thank you. I love you all. All right. Oh, this is gonna have so many cuts and bruises and kicks and kites. Death to my 20s. All right, so yeah, the lessons learned, connected, interconnected to my 20s, through my 20s, all the adversities and annihilations. I was going to get into the mirror verses, the reflective, the mirroring, the games, the teachings, the times. Death to my 20s. Sorry, I'm definitely being humorous, This is something I've learned to embrace during these times, as well as death to my 20s. All right, but in all seriousness, the lessons learned throughout my 20s was being somebody who was always very stubborn and just strict in terms of how I am and how I was as an individual in my 20s. I encountered and experienced a lot of trials and tribulations in terms of everything connected to my identity, everything connected to love, everything connected to my vocation to some extent, which influenced and impacted my wealth to some extent. But with that being said, due to my vocation, my work and career being as it's part of the spiritual side of life, I created a world for myself in my 20s where it was like I was just being taken care of throughout those years, because, being someone who's a believer in other times, other places that are outside of our world of the earth. I created a world for myself during my 20s where I did not have to do much due to the harsh truths that we were all witnessing throughout the indigenous communities. Being somebody who has indigenous ancestry, I thought I would throw that in there. So I utilized back then in my 20s, gifts that I knew I had, but in order to get the game, sometimes you gotta play the game. Do you know what I'm saying? Anyways, so everything interconnected to identity, love, vocation, and wealth. It was just, I needed to give myself time to slow down back then, because honestly, there's a lot of people in the world who deserve to just take life slow, especially in your 20s, especially if you're an individual who's had adverse alternative experiences disempowering you, you know? So with that being said, it's like in my 20s, everything that I was doing back then was just like practice until perfected. So now we're sitting here about to be 30. We're about to be 30. That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. It's on Moon Day. It's on Moon Day.
All right, so going forward now, I'm really embracing my humor. I'm gonna honor the humorous, you know? Because that's something I think I've heard that going into your 30s, what is that? There's like something where it's like dirty 30s, or there's all these terms, I don't know, I don't really pay attention to them, but you kind of like, you know, from time to time you hear people, you interact with people and they say things and you're just like, oh yeah. So I thought, yeah, you know, I'm gonna be a little bit more lax and whatever, you know? So yeah, I guess you always hear that saying, or there's that whole reality with, like, you know, I heard someone inform me of this, that like life never stops feeling like a school. Life is like an institution, you know, but it's similar to how school institutions are implemented, which sounds really insane, but so yeah, when I heard that and when I was told that, you know, life never stops feeling like school, and I was like, all my experiences in school were really challenging. So when I try to think back on my 20s and like everyone, you know, and everything that happened, I'm just kind of like, And now we're back here sitting at home in my chair, and I'm 30 going on 60. Truthfully, I'm being honest here, like, what is it? You know, you see those and you hear those stories of people, and it's like, you know, you are connected to these people and you're experiencing all these things with these people, and it's just like my life seems to be like this consistent, constant theme of like death and rebirth cycles, letting people, places, times, memories, like, it's just like I'm kind of one of those paradoxical people where you're just kind of like, my identity is like, I'm basically you're just watching yourself, you know, that's kind of my existence. It's kind of like, but truth be told, that's just like how I've been since I was an infant, since I was a child, since I was a teenager, just to my 20s. Seriously speaking though, my 4 sectors of my solidified self is very universal. So I hold a vibration of universalism within me and without me. Death to my 20s. So I don't know. In terms of lessons being learned in the 20s, you know, for someone like myself, such as Shlee Strange, it's its own world, you know? So when people say, oh, you know, I learned this and this and this and that and this, sometimes all of it is irrelevant for me. It's like existential crisis. Solidified self. Yeah. It's how it's working. It's how it's... So